Is there a growing crisis of food shortage in the secondary schools, or is there not? That's the question on our minds this morning. I've been joined in studio by Gapson Kofi Raphael. He's the General Secretary of the National Council of Parent-Teacher Association. And then also joining me on the phone line is my long-lost friend Kofi Asari, who's the Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch. Kofi, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Hi, good morning, Johnny. Good morning to your Irish audience and fellow panelists.
Great. Gapson, good morning. Gapson, you may have to use the headphone so you can hear Kofi. Thank you. Kofi, let me begin with you. What's happening in the schools?
Well, basic schools are preparing for BECE. Secondary schools are preparing for WASI. Typically, that's what's happening in the schools because we are the season of preparing for examinations, external examinations.
Relative to the looming food crisis in the schools, or if you like, the existing food crisis in the school, what are you able to share? What are your initial thoughts? What have you been finding out?
We just returned from our policy monitoring in February, early March. We are not aware of any food crisis. I had food crisis in the news on Saturday morning. We have about 100 schools that we normally test policies at. So we immediately called about 60 of them, majority in the north. And we were told that there was a debt to be cleared. A debt incurred as a result of buying perishables like salt, like pepper, those things that the schools buy from their local market, which is about 6 or so items out of the 22 or so food items that are required in the schools. And so there's been a debt that government needed to pay. Other than that, it was becoming difficult for schools to continue to pre-finance that expenditure, and that they were owing people, right? So when we got that information, we got in touch with CHAF and then the other COPTI to ascertain the situation. And then on Monday, we were told that government has released about 200 million cedis to take care of the arrears, which dated as far back as I think October, up to end of February. So that's the situation as we speak. So far as we are concerned, there's no crisis. The payment has been done. GNS confirmed the use of the check yesterday. So today, according to GNS, they are disbursing to the schools. I had CHAS confirm. I spoke with Father, the CHAS president. And so I don't think it's a crisis. There was a debt situation, and then it's perhaps prolonged. Not perhaps it prolonged, but it has been cleared. It didn't lead to shortages in schools.
Right.
For the other food stock, the majority of food stock, about 70 or 80% of food stock, I think in our schools, when we checked, we have enough stock to last almost the whole academic year. So that's the situation we found. But quickly, Johnny, it is important for us to appreciate that the challenges that existed in terms of clearing.
We will come to that. I want to give Gapson also an opportunity to tell me what he knows, and then we'll come to what existed prior to this situation. Gapson, good morning, and thank you for your time. Kofi says there's no crisis. What he's aware of is that there was a debt situation. Government has sent some money to try to answer to that debt question, but as far as he knows, there's no food crisis in the school. What do you know?
I fully associate with Kofi. There is no crisis. There was a challenge with regards to perishables, money to support perishables that will complement the rice, the gari, the wachi, and the other things that we know when you put food on the table, there should be an accompaniment.
Right.
The stew, the
the pepper,
the soup, the things that make the stew and the soup it becomes very extremely necessary to make sure we have a nutritious meal on the table for the child. So I agree perfectly with Kofi that there was no crisis. Yesterday, in one of our sister stations, when this issue came up, and then the picture being put in the public domain was that there were general food shortages. It was very clear by myself and also collaborated by the child's general secretary that they have enough food supplies in the schools. What they have a challenge with is money to support perishables, and they've used other methods and other means as managers to try to sustain the situation. Where they are getting to, they are headed towards a crisis situation, and they think that they are getting towards the danger zone. That is why they are drawing the attention of government and other stakeholders. I also made it clear at that very forum, which I want to re-echo today, that I want to put my credibility on the line. If by close of day yesterday to today, if that issue is not being resolved by government, then we know that by close of this week, if we have any statement to make, we'll also make a statement.
So who were the ones screaming about this crisis? Because that was the conversation that took over the meeting. In fact, somebody called me, 2 parents called me and said, they said there's food crisis, our children are hungry in the schools. So you have to investigate and do something about who started it.
Well, I don't want to talk about who started it. But Ghana, we like ake. Yes. Or that's not how they say it. Yes. Right. A rumor. That's right. There are some people, I think that the best way they think that they have to get credibility and get prominence to push their triggers and personal egos and other things is to try to do these things. But let me just urge and advise the stakeholders within government that, look, they survive together and they perish together. So some of these things, they should be very careful how they try to pull each other down. Because per my checks, I have seen that it's part of the nuances that we are seeing, which is not helpful to our collective good. For us as parents, our most interesting aspect is that we are preparing our students for BEC, of which my child, my daughter, is writing in Atibu. And
when are they starting?
I think early May.
Early May, okay,
yes,
all right.
So,
good.
And she's somebody that we look up to her to do something so unique. And we look up to her that she has always been burning the midnight candle. She's not the type who believes in any shortcut to life. And I'm just too proud of her.
Okay, thank you.
We are hoping and praying that most of our students, both at the BC and the WASI level, will see that the best way to survive in life is to try to take your destiny into your own hands and make sure that you complement the efforts of your parents and you burn the midnight candle and learn and make sure that you produce the needed results.
Thank you. I'm sure that the children have taken that admonition, and so for you, the organizations and CSOs and whoever should focus on weightier matters and not to create a situation that's on the ground. Kofi, let me come back to you. You were telling me about the situation that pertained before this current situation. What have you to share, sir?
Well, before I talk about the situation, let me indicate that if there is food shortage in our senior high schools, normally what is the first to notice? Because, they are very, very conservative. They only come out when it gets to, when push comes to shove. And so for us, when we detect that in a particular school, food is being compromised, we are the first to run to town. And so I was surprised when I heard that, after calling many of about 60 schools, it was difficult to reconcile the food shortage news I heard with what was going on the ground. But it appeared it was an issue of debt that had prolonged. It was threatening the capacity of schools to procure perishables and had to immediately be addressed. I don't normally like talking about food, because my organization believes that in the first place, spending 3 billion cedis a year on food for students in senior high school is not spending efficiency. We are now spending get funds money, which should have been used to build new schools, build new universities, and build new secondary schools. We are now spending 3 billion out of it, in buying food to feed children who were not hungry or poverty-stricken when they were in junior high school. Only Ghana does this, and we still want to emphasize that it doesn't reflect spending efficiency for us to feed both children of the rich and poor to the tune of 3 billion cedis, almost a third of the total debt fund allocation going to feeding consumption when it should be going to capital expenditure in a country where 5,000 schools are under trees. So I want to contextualize my submission. Second, there appear to be what I see some transitional gaps. Okay, so Get Fund ordinarily is a procurement entity. They procure mainly capex, and maybe some large volume goods and services. But it happens that we migrated Free Senior High School into the Get Fund system. Then under the Free Senior High School system, there was space. When they were being run by under GOG funding and ABFE, there was space for non-procurement activities. Like buying things out in the market, like petty cash. You go and buy stuff on the market without a receipt. But in a typical procurement system, that is not allowed. Yeah, so that alignment with the strict procurement mechanisms of Get Fund, was the issue that caused the delay in payment. And that is the information I got yesterday from one of the people in the food supply chain. That's the buffer stock deputy CEO when he was explaining it. And having spoken to Get Fund, I realized that that alignment, is something that must be fixed. We might agree if schools are to engage contractors at the school level to supply them perishables, let's engage. If schools are to use other certificates and buy the stuff in the market as they've been doing all this while, then let's ensure that it is consistent with the public financial management system, and then let's move ahead. Normally, I believe that we should be able to have a win-win, given the dynamics at the school level and also what the public financial management laws is.
Right.
So basically, I think that the problem is solved with dialogue and then consensus, taking into cognizance the dynamics at the school community level and also the PFMCs.
I see. Now let me go back to the earlier question in terms of what pertain. Have we always had this situation?
No, we never had a situation because under the GOG regime, under the GOG-funded regime, schools were given money to just go to the market and buy without receipts. You understand? It was permissible under the GES system, if let me put it that way. That you treated something like petty cash, where the matron will go to the market and then buy pepper, buy salt, buy vegetables without a receipt. And so they will show an ANA certificate and then the store's documentation to prove that these items have been received at the school stores. Okay. So as I'm saying, that those are the procedures existing under the GNES Free Senior High School mandate system before Get Fund came on board as the sole financier of Free Senior High School. And so the challenge is how to align the two practices, because Get Fund one is strictly procurement, where the school will have to procure through competitive means supplier to be supplying this, and then so that there's a contract and there are invoices and there are proof of supplies. It's a strict procurement. So it's about marrying the two within the realities, the realities on the ground, and then also in a manner that doesn't contradict the public financial management laws and regulations. So that's why I'm saying that it is possible to find a middle ground, engaging the auditors, engaging the auditors, both internal and external, engaging the Ministry of Education, Free Senior High School, Get Fund, and other stakeholders.
I see. Gabson, get in for me. How do we ensure that we don't get back to a situation like this again?
First of all, thank you again. I think that Kofi was on point, trying to draw attention that there are some gaps and nuances in the system that is creating some impediments. One of the gaps is that, for instance, we've all been seeing at Public Accounts Committee, that's when they invite heads of schools and they are not able to account for receipts for monies that have been released, they are not able to retire it properly. So it's one of the major constraints
That's right.
currently that has been inherited.
That's right.
That there should be a way out to be able to resolve it. Because you see, I gave you money for a purpose. Before you request for a new one, you have to retire it and retire it properly. You can't come and tell me that I gave you money for perishables, but you've spent the money, but there are no receipts. Why? Because you went and bought it from the local person in the market. In fact, the truth of the matter is that the people who even do the bojo business in the market, now they understand this game very better.
That's right.
And they are able to put documentations together. If only you engage them properly and give them value for money, audit. They will do a good job for you. We shouldn't look down upon our parents who we claim they didn't go to school, but they have made us who we are today. So that is one of the major impediments. So the way out is two options. Either the heads of schools find a way to retire so this doesn't become an issue that will be a constraint in people trying to say, look, because of this barrier, I'm also constrained releasing money to you because at the end of the day, when they call me to come an account, you will not be there to respond to me. So that is one of the issues. Or we outsource that one to contractors who are prepared to go and buy it from these people, put their documentations on it, and make sure that we have a clean sheet and a clean template, so that as and when it's necessary, we don't go back. Because as we speak, they've paid up to February.
Right.
We are in March and April.
We're in April, actually.
Yeah, April. So now you've not been able to bring new requests for additional spending because even the 7 months have not been released to you. So why don't we put out a clear-cut plan that, look, whatever you spend at the end of every month, 2 weeks immediately after that month, let us see the necessary documentations of it.
Great.
So that it can also advise us going forward how we can also put in a contingency measure to make sure we don't go back to this particular process. How they be able to make sure that the schools are well stocked with foods to the point that sometimes it's very, very annoying. You hear that some heads of schools in collusion with some bears and in collusion with matrons are rather even siphoning foods meant for our students.
Siphoning is a nice word. They were stealing the food.
I have to be very diplomatic.
No, but they are stealing.
Well, they have to be very
Stealing
diplomatic. As I have to be very diplomatic.
Stealing, putting them in taxi boots and being intercepted. Based
So
on stealing.
deliberate
It's
theft. Deliberate theft.
Yes.
And these things,
Pilfering.
we just talk about it. People are doing deliberate pilfering, and we just talk about it. They say they set up a committee to investigate. We don't know what has come out of that committee. And when these things happen there, they are ever prepared to flag issues. So we need to look at those who have become an albatross in the system, who are trying to take undue advantage and try to do things that will affect the system. So that is another issue. Another aspect we need to do
quickly,
is that
so I can go to
I will
coffee.
plead with government. You see, when these things happen, it is our students, our wards, and we the parents, we suffer the brunt most. 7 months now, no money for perishables. You ask the heads, they say they were able to manage it. But the truth of the matter is that when you go to the school system, they try to reach out to the PTAs and say, look, we don't have money now to do this. Can you loan us something to use it to run?
Have you done that in the past 7 months?
We've been doing it.
No, in the past 7 months.
I said we've been doing it.
No, I'm asking specifically
It's an
for the
annual
past-
ritual. We've been doing it.
Okay.
I just wanted to know that it's part of the norm. Because we are not in the school space.
Even when PTA were not
I'm saying that when the PTAs were not as strong as it is, we were still doing it.
No,
Because you see,
there was a period in the country when PTAs were outlawed.
I'm explaining something.
Explain.
That period, the government tried to do everything to make sure that we don't operate.
And I'm saying that during that period,
Yes,
did you also
but we're
give
still
money?
contributing money on our WhatsApp platforms to support the schools.
Okay, so you did that even when
Yes,
you were not supposed to be in
yes,
existence.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right.
And I'm just telling
That's the
that,
clarity I
yes,
wanted.
I just want you to know that, look, for us, as far as our children are in the schools, we cannot leave everything to government. Because you see, excuse my language, the school is not a dumping ground for our children to just go and dump them like a baller and we'll take our eyes off and watch the space. That's why we are here having this discussion. And I'm saying that this is something we've been doing. And for now, within this few period, we've not contributed so much in terms of for both food and perishable. But even the monies that we have, we used to do other things in the school. When we said there's an emerging situation that will affect hunger issues in the school or not bring the lesson, when they talk to us behind the scenes, we try to outsource some of
Do
our
they
funds.
pay back these monies to
That
you?
is sometimes the problem we face with them.
Do they pay back?
Sometimes
First
they
you,
don't.
First you answered and then you
Sometimes they
explained.
don't. They don't. some heads are very noble and diplomatic. When it comes back, they say, "Oh, take your money." Some too, when it comes, they will not try to have issues with you. And when you want to talk about it, and you want to talk to your mother body to come in to intervene, they think that you are becoming a nuisance in the school, and they try to fight those parents. So you see, we live in a society that human beings as they are, they don't want the system to police them, but they want those that they work under. They want them to do the things right. But they themselves, as to whether they are also doing things right, is another matter. So these are the realities on the ground that we need to collectively come together and fix it.
Let me bring it, Kofi. So how do we reconcile this situation with the Minister for Agri's pronouncement that this is the very first time, or for the first time, we have food in abundance? If indeed we have food in abundance, why are they not in the schools? Ketsi, government's intervention.
I don't know where the Minister for Agri got that information from. But as I've indicated, the problem is not about the absence of food. It's a liquidity issue. I believe that moving forward, the Ministry of Education gets funds free senior high school. They can agree on something like a credit line of about, let's say, 30-day credit line.
Right.
After 30 days, schools submit the relevant documentation per the agreed procedures. And then they submit them to the Free Senior High Secretariat. Free Senior High Secretariat will use maybe 2 weeks to do verification because the documentation must be verified so that when it comes to auditing, no one is held responsible at Get Fund or at the Ministry of Education or anywhere. So they do verification, a randomized sample verification of the documents submitted versus the documents existing in the school to confirm that, yes, these items were supplied and used, so. Then in the second 2 weeks, based on the outcome of that verification, Free Senior High Secretariat can process and send the documents to Get Fund for payment, so that maximum by 60 days the school gets reimbursed for supplies. The way the PFM works, we've all done supplies. I do supplies, but I don't do supplies with government. I do supplies to private hotels. Normally it's 60, 90-day credit line. So if you have someone supplying you salt or Kobe or contomere, and the person knows that you're going to owe them for 30 days, 40 days, that's fine. It's about the school going through that. And I trust that Charles, very mindful and concerned about the stability of the academic calendar and the welfare of our students, will not be the ones to delay in submitting once we agree on the procedures and the documentation. So that conversation, I'm sure, has started, and I encourage that the Charles Copty, Get Fund, Ministry of Education, and Regional Secretariat should be able to resolve this immediately so that moving forward, everyone knows their key roles they have to play within the timeline. You see, when Get Fund is financing Free Senior High School, okay, the only difference between the past and this particular amendment is that the issue is never the lack of money. It is not GOG. This is the best one. It is never the lack of money. So whenever there are delayed payments, it means that it's either bureaucracies or non-conformity to guidelines or disagreement about processes. But it is not about the lack of money, because Get Fund is the most reliable source of funds in the public sector. You understand? Yeah. So let's get more clarity on the processes and procedures, and when there's consensus, I think that the school heads will be happy to comply, and so that they don't have liquidity problems. Yeah.
Kofi, what do you know about the government's announced plan to have food, for example, distribution decentralized, so that it is not at one point and then everybody will have to come and source from there, but the heads or the bases are giving the freedom to source food, and particularly from their locality and what's readily available that will pass the mark of nutrition for the children. What do you know?
That has always been Edward's recommendation to government. That since Kwame Nkrumah, schools were buying their food until Free Senior High School started. We still insist that there was no reason to centralize food procurement just because there was Free Senior High School, just because schools students stopped paying fees. Okay. Yes, there were gaps. There were accountability gaps. There were pilfering issues related, not you call stealing and all that. But it doesn't mean that centralizing it also didn't have its own challenges. The conversation we are having is one of the challenges of centralized payment. The other challenge is centralized procurement. We've had that challenge in the past 4 or 5 years, and you know about it. And so people supplying expired rice, so all this are a function of centralized procurement, because you buy the food stuff and then they pay for long and all that. I want to submit that when this government had in the manifesto to decentralize feeding in senior schools, we're very happy. So we advise the new government that please go ahead and then build capacity in all the schools on procurement management, PFM, in relation to food. And sorry. We advise the government to undertake a capacity gap analysis, a system capacity analysis at the school level, so that it will give the government an idea about the strengths and challenges within the senior school system when it comes to managing their school procurement, feeding procurement. First. Second recommendation was that on the basis of that, run capacity-based interventions, build accountable systems, digital systems that enables you to track food distribution once they have been procured, that enables you to oversight procurement processes and all that. We advise the government. And then we said that continue running the current system for 1 year. Based on the response you get from the system, then you fully decentralize it. And then by that time, you have stringent accountability measures in place that you are able to monitor compliance with the rules that you have established, and then also monitor procurement and supplies. Unfortunately, the government decided that they are not going to decentralize it. They are going to maintain the status quo that they met. So I have always been in support of Edward's position that schools must be empowered to procure their own food, but central government mechanisms, GES headquarters, Free Senior Secretariat, which we think is not necessary in the first place, GES should be able to put in place stringent mechanisms to monitor how schools procure in line with the PFM, procurement laws, and also how they manage the food stock within the store's management policy, GES. Let me end by saying that as we sit here, schools are procuring uniforms. Schools are procuring uniforms and other things that they use. And that's in high school. So it is not the case that schools have zero capacity to procure. If we are deliberate and want to decentralize feeding, we will be mindful that there will be slippages. And so we'll put in place stringent accountability mechanisms with checks and balances and strong carrots and sticks, so that if you are found breaking the law, you know that you will be removed as a headmaster and taken to the school to classroom to teach. You will see more strengthened compliance. But this current approach of continuing to centralize everything, I think it doesn't assure, so far as I'm concerned, checks and balances. Because if Ministry of Education is procuring, I'm just giving an example. I'm not saying they are procuring. But if Ministry of Education is procuring, who's going to exercise operational oversight over the Ministry of Education? Parliament will only come in at the end of a period. At that time, something could have gone wrong already. But if the schools are procuring, GES will exercise personal oversight regularly, so that to ensure that there is, alignment or compliance with procedures and rules. So that's a conversation we must have moving into the future. The fact that 1 or 2 schools stole doesn't mean that the schools cannot procure. They can if we hold them to the necessary accountability standards and transparency and give them the capacity that they require to operate.
Captain, what have you to say about this procurement of food, centralized, decentralized? What does the PT Association think?
We fully support the position of the then candidate President Mahama that they were going to decentralize it. I think the Ghanaian parents were happy about it. It's part of the reasons they voted for the government.
Is that happening now?
It's not the best.
Is it happening?
It's not happening. It's only the perishables that goes to them, which is about probably 10-20% of the entire cost.
But the others that are not perishable
are all coming from a centralized system. And I agree perfectly with Kofi that, look, we need to build capacity. And where we think genuinely people don't have capacity to work, let's take them off and bring those who have capacity to deliver the goods. Because at the end of the day, who watches the watchman? Who watches the watchman?
Right.
That is the biggest conversation. empty place. If feeding issues are in the destiny and the custody of the schools, and we make sure that the schools belong to communities, we don't leave it for only the GES and then probably the HES. Because you see, you work under me. Sometimes I can whip you in line when you know that what I'm even telling you to do is wrong. But if it's a committee that is taxed and it's the committee that is supervising your activity, I have my rep, the PTAs have their rep, the schools, the committees that the schools belong to, the chief of the community and the assembly also have a rep, and we sit down as a committee and we know that they've given the head, you as a headmaster, they've given maybe 10,000 to procure maize, beans and whatever, and you are going to procure within the community space, and there's a price control mechanism for you to buy within these price ranges, and we know that we have maize in Atebobo, we have beans in Amantin, we have rice within the corridor. The whole of Bunis is a whole food basket. And you are bringing somebody who is bringing the food from Accra or from a different space. Is it the best? Can you calculate the cost involved, the cost build-up involved? But if it's within, it's not going to boost the local-led economy. It's not going to make the people there feel the impact of government's intervention directly on their lives. And at the end of the day, you, the head, will not only have your way. You can make recommendations, and we'll all look through. The best person within that when we outsource issues about perishables to him, he can deliver it on time, and he has capacity and resilience to be able to wait for some time, because at the end of the day, we all believe that the destiny of the school, the welfare of the children, and then the community, as far as the school is there as one of the flashpoints to highlight the community's academic performance and also put the community in the public domain. We will all make sure that we make sure things are done right. You only need to build their capacity, train them, and also make sure that the PTAs, they are representatives in the school of which they are directly. It's because of our children that they bring the. When they are sending money to the school, they count the number of students.
Right.
Don't they count the number of students?
They count
the students per head. No. Who took the student to the school? It's not with the parents.
The parent.
So why do you take these decisions and you don't add us as part of the accountability mechanism? Who are those to make sure that can we compromise food quality at the expense of my child?
No, you won't.
So that is the bottom line of the discussion.
Have you been able to tell government this?
We've discussed this. We are with government in court. Because government wants to regulate our space. Say, no, you can't do that. As famously Dr. Bawumia said, His Excellency, he said, if I do everything today,
what will I do tomorrow?
If you want to control everything, you want to behave as an octopus. Stranding your tentacles into areas that you have no direction.
When did you file this suit?
Oh, it's at the Accra High Court.
When did you file?
We filed it around November
last year.
And we are still in court.
What is the nature of this control that the government wants to have over your
the government is creating an impression that the school-based PTAs are for them. And I don't know where they are even getting that logic from. Because if you read the Pre-Tertiary Education Act, if you read all the laws, PTAs has always been autonomous and independent in nature. So something which is autonomous and independent, how is it under your control? The PTA monies will contribute. Is it dues and levies? Do they belong to government? If you hear fees, it's not Parliament that passes Fees Act. Have you heard Dues and Levies Act before? No, I'm asking you. Have you ever heard Dues and Levies Act before? Oh, Johnny, this one you should talk to it. Why are you also trying to?
I'm not.
No, but talk to it. We're having a frank conversation.
No, I'm here to ask you questions.
So I'm also here to also give you rhetorical questions for you to give me. You're also a parent, so I'm also talking to you.
Rhetorical questions don't require answers.
They don't require answers. Or maybe it's for the public to do their own judgment. But I've added it to the public domain. So I'm just saying that, you see, public funds are clearly defined by the Constitution of Ghana. And then PTAs are private in nature. But what we do is to support a public cause.
Right.
So when we do these things and we hand over a project to the school, now it becomes a school property. That one we have no control and jurisdiction over it.
Right.
But you see, you cannot try to regulate we parents, our activities, which are not under your domain and control.
That's a fair point.
The reality of the matter is that it's not that we have issues with government, but we just think that they didn't get it right on this one. What they also discuss with us is not what they are doing.
Okay.
So we have a duty to make sure that they actually do things right, so that at the end of the day, once and for all, we can wash our hands of this business and be able to come to clarity to do that. Look, PTAs are just like old students association, because we gave birth to the old students association.
Right.
You know that, because if we don't give birth to children to make them who they are today, they won't also become old student association. And most of these old student associations are also PTA people.
I'm sure your point is fairly made.
Yes.
Kofi, let's wrap.
This is what I also want to add to what Kofi spoke about, the accountability and all those things. So I believe that when we are able to do this and build capacity and make sure procurement issues at the local level is properly done and properly managed and properly handled, I'm not sure that we'll get back to this point that people will submit documentations, and when they do some checks, there are issues with it, and it's taking about 6-7 months.
Okay.
For this
Kofi, let's wrap up this conversation. I am looking at the next meal on the next plate, on the next pantry bowl, and I'm sure when you're in school you are handler of the ladle as well, that pot, that plate, that scoop will be nutritional and actually beneficial for the education of that child. What will be your closing thought, Kofi?
First, I am also interested in how the child is prepared to adequately not just learn, but also go through assessment as we prepare our students for BC and OASI. Yes, the meals are important. And so it's important that the agencies responsible for ensuring that there is a hot meal available, breakfast, lunch, and supper in our secondary schools, work closely and ensure that our taxes, as appropriated, support same. But as I have said, let's continue to think about it. That there's no country in this world that spends $300 million in buying food for students in senior high schools, both rich and poor, when that country is struggling to provide desks, beds, and furniture and infrastructure for the same schools that they are using this money to buy food for them. Let's continue to think about it, whether it reflects spending efficiency and what we call prioritized spending as we progress. Thank you.
Kofi Asare, Africa Education Watch, we're grateful for your time. He joined us. Gapson, you have the final word on this one. What do you leave us with?
What I want to say is that, first of all, as parents, we thank government that finally it has intervened once again and proving that it's a listening government. But as it is listening, it should listen and listen well, and make sure that we don't get back to these kind of discussions, and make sure we all learn lessons from it and see how best it can also rope us in the discussion and make sure that we don't sit at the periphery and we hear all kinds of stories and there's all kinds of knee-jerk reactions about it. I also want to add that the Conference of Heads of Senior High Schools, the CHAS, and then the GES, the GET Fund, the Ministry of Education, and then the Free SHS team. Basically, these are the main stakeholders within the government space that try to handle these things. What is more important is that Ghanaians want to see results. They are not interested in who did what and led to what. Whoever has authority over any other person, including even the Ministry of Finance, to make sure that the right things are done within this short period that monies have been released, they should make sure that February and March and then April, we're almost ending April, before it comes, it doesn't come with these same old issues. If you're ahead of a school and you bring your documentation and still have this kind of issues, we should be bold enough to flag that head and then tell the head that, look, you are part of the problems that is making us no progress as a country. And if you don't have capacity to do, there are so many teachers who want to be heads, and some of them are qualified to be heads. If you are a head teacher, people think genuinely you are trying to sabotage the system, we should flag you out. If you are another body within the space and you are trying to be a saboteur of the system and create credibility crisis for government should be bold enough to flag them out. And I'm very, very interested in those who, when food supplies are supplied to schools, their interest is how to build their personal mansions. I'm interested in what government is doing, even though it's a security issues and the police must come in. But we must see the Attorney General and government prosecuting these people. Okay. These stories are not so much in the public domain. When it just comes, we just hear, oh, they've been arrested. But what has happened after that?
Because you're also not interested after
we are
the arrests
interested.
are made.
We've been talking about it. The last time we issued a press statement, we insisted that we've seen that has been the old trend and the whole story. They just arrest people and it ends there. We want when they are arrested, they should be prosecuted, and there should be updates.
But Kofi Gapson,
Yes.
you have taken government to court
Yes.
over its intention to want or attempt to want to
regulate our
to
space.
regulate
Yes.
you. So take government to court to say that we have seen cases A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, blah, blah, blah. There are people stealing food that's supposed to be given to our children. We have not seen results. We are taking you to court to come and give us specific answers.
I thank you very much. You
Yes.
see, if you try to put your eyes everywhere at the same time, you'll not be able to have concentration to deal. So when we finish this one, that will be the next line of action.
We hear you. Kofi Gapson, thank you very much indeed. He is the General Secretary of the National Association or National Council of PTAs here on Sunrise on 3FM 92.7.